Well, all right. So then let's dive into the numbers, so to speak. So, budgeting. Budgeting might seem, as I was saying, like a big scary word to some people. And I'm sure we have others listening who are like, budgeting, that's easy. I love it. I do it all the time. But for some people, it's scary. So, if we're wanting to start having a budget, what's really the goal of budgeting? And how does it help us?
Yeah. So budgeting shouldn't be a scary word for people. The root of it is figuring out where your money is going. That's it's so like common that budgeting is tied to some sort of feeling of deprivation of I can't spend, I'm on a budget, I can't do what I want. But in reality, it's just knowledge about where your money's going. And I like to add to that, ensuring that you're spending your money in line with your values and your priorities. So it's really just making sure that you know and are clear how your money is being spent on a regular basis.
Right. So it's not about berating ourselves about how much we spend on something. It's more about having a correct picture of everything.
Yes, yes. And bringing clarity and light to that, to your regular spending. Absolutely.
I like that angle a lot because you're right. When you hear, oh, you need to have a budget, you need to make a budget, it feels like, oh, I need to stop spending money. It's more
Mhm.
about knowing and understanding.
Yes, I know. And often when I bring that up, even just the word budget, it seems like the most common response I get from people is they get defensive about their Starbucks habit. And I always say, no, if Starbucks is important to you, and I am currently drinking a Starbucks right now,
Yes,
um,
listeners, I confirm she is.
yep, then keep that in your budget. Keep spending. Take that moment and go into Starbucks and smell the smell and feel all the good feelings that it brings. It's not about trying to live a life on as spending as little money as possible. It's about trying to use your finances to support the life that you're trying to build. And the first step to that is bringing some clarity to how you're spending your money currently.
Yeah, I like this perspective a lot. And the next question I was going to ask you, we're kind of already talking about, but maybe we can take it a little bit further. I was going to ask, what do we learn about ourselves when we go through this process? And how could it maybe be empowering as opposed to the opposite?
Mhm. I think there's kind of a twofold approach that people need to take. I think the first thing that you need to do, and this is something I've seen in some of your podcasts, is get really clear about what you want your life to be, the life that you're trying to build. Is it a life that's full of health and fitness and strength, physical strength? Is it a life full of people and camaraderie and friendships and family that are really important to you? Is it a life built for the work that you're so passionate about? Kind of figure out some priorities, put those in order of what's most important and what's least important to you. There's no right answer here. It's really just about getting in touch with yourself, and some of these back episodes from this fabulous podcast can help you with that.
I
Um,
didn't even plant you to say that.
so that you really do know yourself. And then the second piece is to look at your monthly spending. And it doesn't have to be, a deep down dive into every dollar you spent last year. Start with the last 30 days or the last month, in our case, the month of August, and just take a look at your credit card, take a look at your checking account, and kind of put things in categories. You know, there's some regular things you spend on: rent, mortgage, utilities, car, those kinds of things. Um, just put it down all on paper with no judgment. Um, and then once you have that, both of those pieces of information, your values and goals and where your money went for that period, do they line up? If your value in life is um, health and wellness, but your fast food budget is maybe $500 last month, does that really align? Or would you rather spend $500 on that new rock climbing gym that you're super excited about, or getting an Apple Watch to be able to track, your heart rate and fitness levels and sleep and recovery and all of those things? Like, there's a little bit of a disconnect. So, is that where you want your money to go? Um, and there again, there's no right answer. This is all your choice. And so if you do decide that nope, I'm okay with that, and I can figure out how to make those two work in sync going forward, that's just fine. But it provides an easy way for you to maybe kick that McDonald's habit that isn't so healthy for you. Or if your priority is spending time with family and friends, really lots of time for those extroverts, especially out there. Um, and you see that you're eating out menu or eating out entertainment, going out to bars, that kind of expense is like 500 or 750 in a month. To you, that may be totally worth it. And go for it. You're working on relationships, you're building connections, you're maybe moving along a career, things like that. Um, like that's absolutely in line, even though some traditional financial rules of thumb will tell you no, that's too much to spend eating out. Know yourself and choose to, pay less for cable and some of those introverting things that isn't who you are, so that you can afford to have more time with people.
Yeah, I, this is, I don't know why I can't get a sentence out.
That's okay.
This is perfectly a great method, I think, and not the way I learned it. So I love that because that's what we're here for. And it's interesting because you're right, there are sort of rules of thumb, I feel like, that people might have heard of how much of your income should be for your
Yep,
housing and how much should be for your food and how much should be for your entertainment. But I often say in various instances that we should stop shoulding on ourselves and get rid of the word should. And that's kind of what
absolutely.
you're saying.
Yes,
There's no should.
100%. Yep, being confident in what you want out of life and what you're doing, and knowing that you're making the right choices for you where you're at right now, is huge in giving yourself the permission to live a life that fulfills you and um, you know aligns with those goals and values, um, and using your finances to then support that life. So I have a friend here that she's in her 40s, she's single, makes a whole lot of money, but chooses to live in a house with a couple of roommates because she is the extroverted extrovert that I have ever met. And she is never at home. And so she's like, why would I pay 3 times as much to live by myself? And I'm never at home anyway. She's like, I roll in, I sleep, I get up, and I go to work. You know, I'm just never there. And because of that, she's able to she loves to donate and give back to her community, so she's able to donate. She travels extensively and is really living a fulfilling life, and yet people, stereotypically would judge her for her choice, and she owns it unapologetically.
I love that, and I'm impressed by her. And it's interesting because about 3 years ago, my husband and I downsized from a big house with a yard to a still fairly good size, but no yard townhouse in a neighborhood we'd always wanted to live in. And we love it. We love it. We love the other place too, but we love it. And at the time, I really had to mentally adjust what I was thinking because I kept thinking people would think I needed to downsize because I didn't have the money or something like that, which was not the case. Isn't it funny how we somehow think we should spend in a certain way because of what we think other people think, which is
Hmm. Again, yeah, the shoulds and the judgment and that nagging voice that's in the back of your head
exactly
is so powerful these days. Um, and then, once you go through that kind of initial exercise and look at how you've been spending your money compared to your values, going forward, it's a matter of just kind of keeping an eye on your monthly spending in some of those specific categories that you either want to reduce or increase. So maybe using an app. Some people are like the You Need a Budget or Mint or something like that, not to drag you down and track every single penny and look at it every night and make sure it's okay, but checking in a couple times a month real quick. um, there's some credit cards and banks that offer some kind of summary tools that can also help if your spending is kind of within the same company. um, that is also a great free option for people as well, that doesn't feel quite as overwhelming as some of those
right.
apps do too.
So
um,
for the apps, I confess I have not used an app. That's probably just my age group. But do can they be set up so that they get transactions directly from your credit card or your bank or whatever, and you can just have a look?
Yes, yep. You can link it to usually a couple different credit card bank accounts to kind of collect it all. And often people will start to use them and feel a little overwhelmed by it just because of all the things that they ask you to track. So even if you narrow that down and just pick a few of those kind of tempting areas to overspend, eating out, shopping, Target, Amazon, entertainment, things like that. Um, Groceries is another one that I like to recommend people keep an eye on just because it tends to be a larger expense. So that you're just looking at, 4 or 5 budget categories on a regular basis. You're not looking at 20 because generally your utilities don't really change all that much. Your car insurance doesn't really change all that much. So don't bother tracking it that closely. Update it once a year when it changes and move on and focus on other areas that are a lot more variable.
That's a really good idea because your rent's probably not changing. As you said, utilities might go up and down a little, but not a lot. And
Mhm.
yeah, good point. Good point. Maybe it seems a little easier.
And I think the other thing that I see a lot with big life changes is don't be afraid to cancel or stop paying for things that just don't fit in the lifestyle that you currently have. I see people all the time that have emotional attachments to their gym membership that they are not currently using. Maybe it changed and they're now doing yoga, but they won't give up the weightlifting gym from 5 years ago, um, or the gym from where they grew up and they now live halfway across the country. Things like that. So you can always re-sign up. You can rejoin, but in the meantime, you'll be saving money each month, not paying that.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm thinking, wow, the gym where they grew up, but I could see how that would happen. You just sort of lose track of it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I've noticed that I am not always good about is realizing even what I've subscribed to online.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $5, it's $9, it's $15, whatever, but all those could add up, right? And so we need to make sure that we're aware. I guess this goes back to the original point
Mm-hmm.
of what's actually happening because maybe we're not using those things anymore.
Yeah, subscriptions are so sneaky these days and they come up in all areas of life. It used to just be like streaming and that was all, but now it's a subscription to, get DoorDash and a subscription for newspaper and for cooking recipes. And I like to recommend that my clients once a year go through and take a look at what they're being charged every month for those kinds of subscriptions and make sure that they are still getting value from that. you subscribe to the New York Times, but you don't know your password, you can't remember the last time you logged in, are you really getting value from that subscription? Or maybe you let it go for 6 months and try it again down the road.
Right. And you make a good point. They're always going to let us back. They always are going to
100%.
want us back.
And not just let you back, they will welcome you with open arms. They are thrilled to have you come back. They might even offer you a discount to come back.
Very
Um,
good point.
yeah. So it's okay to cancel things. And then, I mean, if you decide that you miss it, then down the road, resubscribe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. It's so sneaky, all the different things. And as you said, if we just sat down and looked at our bank account or our, I don't know, PayPal or our wherever it is and
Yeah.
looked through a whole month, I think we would maybe catch things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially when you're sharing finances with somebody else, sometimes someone else will subscribe to something on Patreon, and you'll be like, "Oh, well, I just assumed it was something you were watching regularly," and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I forgot about it," and yet you've been very nicely supporting this person on Patreon that neither of you guys are watching
Right.
for the last 6 months. So. Doing that exercise together, if you're sharing finances with someone, is best.
Excellent point. Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to even figure out what it is. So you kind of need
Mhm.
both of you to talk about it. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So, okay, tell me if we missed anything that is a tip that somebody really needs to know with budgeting, or do you think we kind of got the full basics?
I think we have a lot of the basics. I think really focusing on people's kind of that voluntary choice level spending versus the fixed spending that happens is really the place that if you are going to dive into budgeting a little bit, that you should focus your efforts on and not get overwhelmed by trying to track every single penny each month.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tell us, how can people, if they want to connect with you to find out more or maybe to work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so Fearless Finance is on all of these social media sites that we can possibly be on. I say there's links to those down in the show notes or in the comments below. So give us a follow and take a look at the finance tips that we post on social media. Um, and then we also have a team of 6 financial planners that are available to work with you guys on a one on one basis. We are located all over the US, but we meet with all of our clients via Zoom so that we can work with anyone, anywhere on their finances. So, as part of a promotion for being on this podcast, because I'm so thankful to be here,
Yay!
we'll give you $50 off your first meeting with us to work together and come up with an initial financial plan. It usually takes about 2, maybe 3 meetings, 3 hour long meetings, to come up with a financial plan for people and work through some of these different things like spending, repaying debt, the
Right.
terrifying budget word. Um, and also looking at investing for the future, taking advantage of what employee benefits you have. We also talk about estate planning and insurance needs so that if something does happen to you, that people who depend on you are protected financially, in the case that you lose an income or are no longer able to earn an income. So we do work, one on one with people, and part of what we do, we're called a fiduciary financial planner. So we don't earn any commissions, kickbacks, affiliates from anything we recommend. It's We get to know you, and we make recommendations for your finances based on your personal values, goals, things like that, and our expertise. So it's trustworthy. There's no benefit to us for the things we recommend. They're just the best products that we found for our clients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I having done various financial planning meetings with different people over the years, I really like this aspect of fearless finance. So I will give you that plug for sure. I feel
Yeah.
like we kind of know that you're recommending what you really think is a good idea. So
Mhm.
that's important. So, yes, listeners, you get to use the code Teach Me to get this $50 off if you decide to make an appointment with someone at Fearless Finance. So thank you, Fearless Finance, for that. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just, there's a contact us form on the website down below, and you can just enter that in the promo code, and you'll get connected with one of us financial planners. So,
Perfect.